Hi, Margaret. Lovely to see you. You have some questions for me.
I do, from readers, and we're going to start with a question from Valerie, who says, "Hi Ronan, you wrote about Portugal's golden visa and its different levels, which I didn't know existed. What's the definition of a low density location, and what would be your suggestion for investing in real estate in the Algarve? I'd appreciate any advice you could give us for getting the golden visa."
Great stuff. So two parts to the question. The first part is that there is a threshold of how much money you need to spend before becoming eligible for a golden visa. That threshold is lower in areas that are defined as low density. How is that definition figured? I have no clue, but what I do know is that the brokers, when you look at any specific property, will tell you what category that property or that particular area falls into. Also, of course, be very sure that you involve a lawyer in this process, which of course you will be doing anyway if it's part of a golden visa application. So the criteria and the terms can move around somewhat. Things have changed in parts of the country and redesignating in one direction or the other. So again, very important to include a lawyer, but your broker will tell you is the answer. And then secondly, in terms of best investment opportunities in the Algarve, the deals I really like are, number one, the opportunity to buy bank foreclosures in really high-end resort communities at a discounted price and with 100% finance. So when a bank is reselling inventory or a home that they've foreclosed on or repossessed, they will sometimes offer 100% financing. Now, the trick with these deals is that most of the time they're priced at either market price or higher than market price. But if you're willing to put in the legwork, if you're willing to troll through the available properties, you will find some nuggets in there. And that's what I found the last time I was down in the Algarve. I was able to buy, the sale hasn't closed yet, that's going through process, but for 410,000 euros, I was able to buy a bank foreclosure unit in a luxury resort. The exact identical unit lists for 670,000 euros on the regular retail market. Now, they're not exactly an apples and apples comparison in that the unit I'm buying needs some cabinetry replaced. It's a foreclosure that's been shut up and neglected for 6 or 8 years, but structurally it's the same unit. So it's an opportunity to buy at as much as 200,000 euros below market with 100% finance at about 1.1%. Second big investment opportunity I like in the Algarve is rental condos in Lagos. Lagos is one of my favorite beach towns, and it's also one of the strongest locations for short-term rentals in the Algarve. You can buy a really spacious and really nice 2-bed, 2-bath condo there from about 400,000 euro that will generate a gross annual 10% rental yield. Then the third big idea I really like is to buy unloved or dilapidated villas in the central Algarve. Again, many of these are distressed. Many of them were foreclosed back in the 2008 and 2009 crisis, and the bank just hadn't got around to dealing with them yet. So you find the right villa that's dilapidated, that needs to be refurbished and freshened up. You can add a lot of value to it, and you can add a lot of value and then resell or make available for rental. So those are the three big ideas I really like in terms of the Algarve.
And I'd say the takeaway there as well is find a good broker and find a good attorney when you're wanting to comply with the golden visa and get a good real estate deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving on then to Dawn, who says, hi Ronan, you talk about investing in Portugal with fire sale condos, no money down and about 1% borrowing costs. I'm wondering how that might work for those of us who are small borrowers and may not have massive cash assets, but a great credit rating. Do you set up an LLC? I also wonder how easy it is to manage if you don't speak the language and the deal isn't a plug and play with a rental manager. So maybe if we start first with the borrowing side of things.
Yeah, so borrowing in Portugal will be a function of provable income. So your credit rating back home won't really matter. What you'll need to show is that you have income from a reliable source. So that can be employment income or pension income. But generally, they're very flexible with borrowings once you have reliable and provable income that dates at least kind of for at least the 2 years. But again, the longer the history, the better. Interest rates, yes, absolutely. You can borrow in the range of about 1.1%. To jump the LLC, everything I've bought in Portugal, I've bought in my own name. There's no reason at the Portugal level to buy through an LLC or an equivalent entity in Portugal, but it might suit your purposes back home to buy through some kind of entity. That would be a question for whoever manages your setup back home.
So you probably need to discuss that, I would say, with an attorney in Portugal and with your tax advisor back home to find out which is best for you. And it might be an LLC, it might not be, but you should consult your tax advisor back home as well. And then the final part of the question was how easy it was to manage if you don't speak the language and the deal isn't a plug and play with a rental manager.
Yeah, so the management is the rental management is extremely easy in the Algarve. It's a really well developed tourism market. There's countless really strong and capable rental managers who in many cases are international themselves, and their business is dealing with international with international clients. So language isn't an issue. If there's some renovations to be done, that can be a bit trickier. Renovations and refurbishment can be difficult on your home patch. It can be a bit trickier in Portugal. Now, that said, many people who work on projects like this are hungry for the work at the moment. There's been a bit of a slowdown, and the people who they deal with day in, day out in their businesses are international people. So when you go to Portugal, or when you go to the Algarve, this is a very internationalized place. This is a place where, frequently you'll be, your builder could be Norwegian and your accountant could be English. This is an internationalized place. Many of the businesses down here are run by people from various parts of Europe. Even say between Scandinavians, typically their language of business is all English as well. So English is pretty much the language of business down there. So language isn't an issue.
And I've already met Russians, for example, in Faro, who've been here for a decade and who haven't learned Portuguese, but who can certainly speak English. And they've said that they've had absolutely no issues getting by just in English.
Yeah, you see that, for example, in the golf clubs, for example, in all kind of things like that, where people from different countries get together. English is the language.
Okay, then Tricia says, I'm putting a house on the market and hope to have it sold very soon. So best of luck to you there, Tricia. I'm interested in investing in real estate on a beach somewhere, and Playa Caracol looks perfect to me. I've researched a lot and been to Panama several times. What amount is necessary to invest in a condo, and is the builder providing financing?
Okay, so the way it works, say with our most recent launch, which had an entry price of $137,000. You make a down payment of $5,000. You make an additional payment of $5,000 to sign your contract with $10,000 down. Then between then and when you take delivery of your condo in about three years or so, you pay a total of 50% of the purchase price. So if the condo is $140,000, you will pay $70,000 during that construction period. And then the balance you can either pay off or finance is available direct from the developer. And all RETA members are pre-approved for developer finance on this opportunity. There's no credit checks or no criteria other than just a requirement to be a RETA member.
And it's worth pointing out that that's a very typical structure for RETA members only deals where there's financing in place. It's unusual to get this financing overseas, but for RETA members, that would be typical, where you're making a down payment, then paying 50% during construction. So you've only paid 50% when you've got the keys in your hand, and then either paying the balance in cash or taking up developer finance when that's on offer. Spencer says, I'm a RETA subscriber. I'm interested in getting a passport in Uruguay under the investor program. Can you tell me where to get started?
Go to your RETA Rolodex of contacts, look up Juan Fisher in the RETA Rolodex. He is my lawyer there. He is our go-to guy at RETA for anything related to Uruguay residency or legals. Uruguay has just come out with this just incredible new program. They've basically taken the good parts of Portugal's golden visa and made it even better. So now you can get through a property purchase in Uruguay, you can get tax residents and tax residents in Uruguay. That means that you pay zero tax for 10 years in Uruguay. So any non-Uruguay income is taxed at a 0% rate for 10 years. And it gets even better. You don't even need to fill out the forms. So other countries, like, for example, Portugal with its golden visa, you still need to fill out the tax forms that show all your income from various different places, even if you're not paying tax on it. Uruguay, no admin, no taxes, 10 years. It is very, very appealing. All you need to do to meet the criteria are to purchase a property there with about a $400,000 threshold, plus spend 60 days a year there.
Moving on then to Liam, who's asking, is it hard to qualify for a mortgage in Europe? I may be a cash buyer, but I'm curious about mortgages as well. I'm also interested in large properties like hotels or large estates, if I can get a good price. Any help would be appreciated.
Great. So first of all, the answer is it varies in Europe. In Portugal, it's pretty straightforward. Spain, it's relatively straightforward. France and Italy can be a bit more tricky, but it's possible. And in Portugal, you can borrow 80% at a rate of about 1.1%. In Spain, it's more like borrowing 70% at more like 1.5 to 1.7%. France and Italy, you're maybe borrowing in the region of 60 to 50%, again at rates in the range of 1.5 to 1.9%. It can be administratively tricky, but it is well worth it. I mean, to be able to lock in a mortgage at rates that low in an environment where you may be concerned about money printing, you may be concerned about inflation, it feels like a very prudent thing to do. In particular, in France and Spain, you can lock in, you can fix those rates way into the long term at very, very, very low rates. So if you want to kind of make an inflation hedge, fixing a long-term mortgage at really low rates is a great way to do it. So It's doable. Then it varies. I mean, in places like Ireland, it's effectively impossible. So it does vary country by country. In terms of the bigger ticket purchases, from time to time, we bring them to RETA from time to time, an opportunity for a distressed hotel or a distressed land parcel will cross our desk here. We'll assess it, write up a report, and send it on to RETA members. Now, if you want to get out ahead of all of that, my suggestion again would be to go to the RETA Rolodex, identify the markets where you're interested in exploring those types of deals, and write to our contacts, write to the lawyers and write to the brokers. Lawyers are always a good one to talk to, because they come across stuff, and if you're there on their radar, you might find they just send you stuff that crosses their desk.
Roger says he's interested in moving to Ecuador or somewhere in Central America. Can I get involved, he asks, in investing with a minimal amount of finances?
Well, I guess that's a kind of a two-part question that I'd separate out, because where you put yourself and where you put your money can be very, very different things. So you might decide you want to put yourself in Ecuador because it's a beautiful country with a really, really low cost of living, but Ecuador isn't a place that I'd recommend that you invest for profit. You know, likewise, you might want to you might want to invest in Costa Rica's southern zone for profit, but you might prefer to spend time in Nicaragua. So I guess that aside, in RETA we have had kind of deals in Central America with an entry point in the region of kind of $30,000 to $40,000, like lots in Costa Rica from $30,000. In Nicaragua right now, there's the opportunity to get some amazing fire sale deals if you have an appetite for the political uncertainty there. So there are some opportunities with a low entry point in Central America, but you know, my big takeaway from this would be to separate out the decision as to where you put your money and where you put yourself, because they don't need to be the same place.
And I think it's worth pointing out that even if you don't have a huge chunk of money up front, I mean, we've been talking about deals in Panama for $137,000, for example, and you don't need that $137,000 up front in one chunk as a RETA member. You're making stage payments during construction, then you can take advantage of developer finance. So there are people out there who don't necessarily have a big lump sum, but they maybe have regular income coming in and they maybe can afford it. I think with Ecuador, for example, and you yourself have purchased a bolt hole there in the past, Ronan, but we've researched Ecuador in recent years, and really it would be a place that you'd buy because you'd love, and you may be able to find, you know, a low cost condo somewhere, maybe in the highlands or somewhere like Cuenca, but you're probably not going to see any gains, and you certainly won't be seeing great rental returns if you decide to rent it out. So on the investment front, it's not necessarily the best idea. So as you say, best to separate out the personal from the investment side as well.
Yeah.
Donald says he's just signed up to follow your Roving Real Estate Investor e-letter and is thinking about becoming a RETA member. How much liquid cash do you recommend to make it worthwhile to purchase properties?
Yeah, so again, I guess this is a bit like the previous question. We have, you know, we have lots in places like Costa Rica with an entry price of $30,000 that have come with developer financing. I guess most of our pre-construction condo deals maybe come in at a price point, an entry point of around that $137,000, which you'll typically need, you know, after you've gone through the reservation process, you'll need 20% up front, and then an additional 30% during the construction period. So it really varies. We have opportunities in Spain and Portugal where you can borrow up to 80%, and again, kind of entry prices there are in the region of 150,000 euros or so. So in those cases, you'd be looking at, you know, needing 30,000 euros or $40,000 for your down payment with a bank to come up with the balance.
We're going over now to Mark, who says, hi Ronan, as we embark on buying property outside the US, do you have any recommendations for foreign currency bank management and tax services?
Okay, so first of all, the bank management. So if I'm not sure if this is the question being asked, but I use TransferWise now for all my transfers. It's a really, really straightforward and simple app that has cut through the headaches and costs of wiring money to whether it's Mexico or Portugal or Panama. It's basically I transfer. The way the process works is I transfer from my account into a holding account, a TransferWise holding account, and from there the money shoots off to the beneficiary. I've been using it for about 3 years now, and I mean, I guess I must make 20 plus transfers a month using it for the various things I need to juggle, and I find it absolutely excellent. Charges are minimal. I'd highly recommend using it. It doesn't work for Brazil because Brazil is quirky because of their arcane currency control laws. So then tax, so there's two sides to the tax equation. There's the country where the deal is, and then also your home jurisdiction. So with every RETA deal, there's an introduction to a lawyer. They can either help you with your taxes or direct you to whoever they use for taxes. And it's generally pretty clean and straightforward, and generally rental income in the places where we're active isn't taxed heavily. Then this most likely will need to be reflected in your tax returns in your home jurisdiction. So from that side of things, it's a case of just sitting down with your tax advisor back home and saying, you know, here are the numbers from the country in question. You know, I generally think that it's not necessary to have any kind of international tax advice or person who does everything for you. There are groups out there that offer that service. They're typically very expensive, and it's unnecessary because you have the information from your in-country tax advisor. This just needs to move over to your tax advisor back home. So I guess the only important part is that your tax advisor back home knows how to handle that income, which is very straightforward, but maybe they might not have had experience of dealing with it before.
And our final question then is from Philip, who says, I'm a recent subscriber to RETA. I read the articles all the time. My quick question is this: when your team offers a hot buy RETA deal on a new project such as Caracol, do you have to have the entire sum of money up front? I've noticed in some of your articles that you have put the sum of money down, but not the entire big hit.
Yeah, so again, for that Caracol deal, $5,000 on reservation, an additional $5,000 on contract signature. That brings you to $10,000. Then between that time and when you take delivery, you need to pay a total of 50% of the purchase price. So basically, in broad terms, you spread 50% of the purchase price out over a 2 to 3 year build period. So no, you don't need the money up front, but you do need to make sure that in that construction period, you will have the 50% that's required through to delivery. Then typically, but not necessarily always the case, but the vast majority of our RETA deals have developer financing. So on delivery, you've paid 50%, the remaining 50% can be financed by developer finance.
And then what about crisis deals where we talk about foreclosures, for example, a hot deal in Portugal or a hot deal in Spain? How does that work?
So again, it depends on the country, and it depends on the type of deal. Some of the Portugal bank foreclosures, they're willing to offer 100%. So these are deals where the bank are just happy to move the debt onto another person. Sometimes the banks want to be paid in full 100%. So sometimes you'll need to go and get a mortgage with another bank to take a foreclosure from a bank, and that mortgage could be up to 80%. In Spain, we're generally borrowing 70%, but in some rare situations with bank foreclosures, it's possible to get 100%. So it does vary depending on the country and depending on the deal, but up to 100% finance is available in certain circumstances.
Great advice. Thanks, Ronan.
Thanks, Margaret. See ya.